Once upon a time, a long time ago, before, and long before time was written down, or was in a clock, or was in space, or before Newton, before time, when it began, something fell asleep. Something waited for time to stop, time to sleep. And in that sleep, what dreams may come. What will wake you from that certain sleep? Are you asleep at work? Are you just sleepwalking through your life? Are you sleeping, waiting to be woken? Perhaps all humanity is asleep and waiting to be awoken. Just because you've got your eyes open, it doesn't mean to say that I am awake. Or perhaps you are awake but don't know what to see. These are the things of fairy stories. When we see, I expect you've heard of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. This is a very deep kind of story, and just treat it like a story, like a child might hear a story. You might leave it at that and never open it up any further. You might not understand why the dwarfs are in tunnels underneath the earth, trying to find mining for bits of gold and trinkets and stuff that they can bring back to the surface. Do you not think that mine and mind have something to do with mining and something found, which is a stone, which has been mined? Things that are found, things that are searched for in the depths of yourself. It's like you're mining into the unknown. And who does this with you? These small people, they live in the earth. That's like living in your stomach, you know. Imagine all your intestines. Imagine what they are like, what they are full of, and how they turn quite ordinary things into energy, into movement. How does this work? How do you make something that you eat into something that you could move and think with? That's an amazing transition. I mean, food is often thought of as just food. But you must see these beings rather like they transform. It's good to see them as beings. They transform something from something by alchemical things into gold, which is possible to be with. And then, they take this gold and they turn it into something. How is it you can have thoughts and thinking? How is it that you can enjoy yourself? First of all, you must be able to transmute all you see into something that you find enjoyable. That relationship is is like the dwarves. The mind and mining and found and knowledge and knowing, these are all to do with transformation, transforming from something not known into something precious and known. Nothing that's not known can be precious. Why do you go mining? In the hope of finding something that you didn't expect. The mind is like this. The dwarfs are like that. And what is Snow White? Snow White happens to come across. She's been so beautiful. She is like love. Love is a very vulnerable thing when people want to possess it, when they want to own it, when they want to have it for themselves and not share it. Love is eternal and does not belong to anybody. And that is like Snow White. Snow White, her purity, her beauty is something absolutely without blemish. But because it has no blemish, the wicked queen, she knows she has dark thoughts, and her love has been crippled by her thoughts, her feelings, her wanting, her needing, her wanting to possess love, to have love totally for herself, and that no one else in her kingdom. See, that kingdom, how big is that kingdom? That kingdom is no bigger. The wood, the castle, they are like the inner world of the body. The castle is like the thinking in the head. The forest is like the intestines and the mind. The mind is full of animals and beauty and bogs and stinking smells, and everything feeds off this. And this echoes into our lives. Our lives are kind of like a fairy story. Why, at the end of Snow White, does the prince marry the princess? It's because they search for each other. Mainly the story is about Snow White waiting for her prince. Well, her prince is her twin. And she doesn't know in this story that she's waiting for her prince, although she's always saying, I wish I could find my prince. But in this prince is an ideal, a perception of clarity, a love that is pure as is hers. And that love goes off in one direction, and her love goes off in another, and slowly they miss each other like we do. You know, some people, they saw each other when they were 19 and they don't. Then they see themselves when they are 80, and then they fall in love then, but they always remembered themselves all those years, even though they got married to somebody else and did something else and did something else. They married and they recognized each other. So that can happen physically. And the fairy story of Snow White, well, it's the eternal story about the twins. You see, when you do meet your twin and you fall in love with each other, you do live happily ever after. You know, and that's the story. But where do you find your twin? In the deep paths of the forest, in the deep mines, in the beauty of something found. There are all these things. So the twin is hiding in the dwarfs, the twin is hiding in the forest, in the animals, and it's a question of recognizing that, and that recognition is to see everything as your twin, not a twin, but the flowers, the trees, what we have named as in a separate way are in feeling no separation at all. There's no separation between the tree, the flowers, and me. There's no separation. But my thinking will go, well, I am that, I am this, that is the tree, and that is that. And it will focus on splitting up the twin into separate things. But they are all one. And so the fairy story is saying, find yourself. But it's so easy for us to see the fairy story as just a story for children, because we've lost why. What is the house in the middle of the forest where just the gnomes live? You know, these are hidden places. These are places which only we can find in ourselves. This house is like our body. Eventually we find it, and it's, you know, it's not altogether being used properly. Some people are drunks, and some people are heroin addicts, and some people are gamblers, and some people are fanatics of stamp collectors, and all these particular things. You know, people are sitting in chairs watching television. People are using their house in all kinds of ways. It takes a lot for a spirit of change to clear up your acts, start to enjoy, be a happier and more present part of yourself without falling into one of the gnomes, dwarfs' feelings. I mean, they were much more like the 7 deadly sins than they are in Walt Disney's Happy, Grumpy, Slumpy, Bumpy, those sort of things. They had a much deeper sense. Anger, these things that you can be. You can be possessed by these things. But you see, altogether, they make a story. Altogether, the dwarves own your mind. But if you don't see that, you can be possessed by these lower feelings. It's a big story. And it comes to us from the ages ago, when the world was inhabited in a different way.